And as we've mentioned, the Pope studied at the Chicago Theological Union. They just held a press conference on the South Side. Let's listen in.
We are still trying to take in the significance of this fabulous news. We waited with bated breath together in one of our classrooms once we heard that there was white smoke. And I will say there were mixed emotions as we waited. We were so very much hoping that we would, that a pope who would have known Pope Francis and would be continuing the directions that he so beautifully set for us would be chosen. But you never know, and you don't know what will happen in the conclave, and when the spirit is turned loose, you really don't know. And so it was with quite bated breath that we waited. And I will say that we were so incredulous at first. What I heard was Roberto, and I caught my breath, and I waited to try to hear the last name, and there was so much excitement in the room and noise in the room that I wasn't sure if I had heard correctly. I really was overwhelmed. There were so many of us in the room. We are overjoyed that someone who was formed initially for ministry here at Catholic Theological Union and who has served the church in so many important ways in these last years, ever since he graduated from here in 1982. We are just overjoyed that someone who's beloved and known to us is now the beloved leader of the whole entire church, and even others who are not Catholic claim the Pope as their own. And we know how important a moment this is for so many others who share our joy. So I am rather taken aback and was not prepared for this moment. We didn't think that the cardinal electors would lean toward choosing an American. And of course, Pope Leo XIV, as Father John just said, has the heart of a Peruvian as well, has been deeply endeared himself to the church in Latin America, and has exercised his ministry these last several years on behalf of the whole world church while he's been in Rome. As head of the Dicastery of Bishops, he's had the opportunity to learn firsthand of the needs of so many in the church all over the world. Here at CTU, we claim as one of our strengths that we form ministers for the world church with a global perspective, with the heart of a missionary, and certainly now Pope Leo XIV embodies those characteristics. And so we are delighted to have you here, and if I can, I'll try to answer some of your questions.
Tell us what kind of man he is. What did he enjoy? What did you talk about when you were his ordained cardinal?
I was there when he was ordained cardinal. I only knew him casually in the earlier years. He graduated in 1982. I didn't join the faculty until 1988, so I missed knowing him as a student. But I did know him casually in the years intervening when we wanted him to teach canon law at CTU, and we were hoping to welcome him to the faculty when Peru snatched him up. But we also knew him as, for a time, he was on our board of trustees. He was a formation director here, and he was provincial of the Augustinians, and so one of the members of the corporation. And so it was a great honor, though, when the Augustinian community asked me to join them. When I want to call him Bob, we knew him as, when he was elevated to cardinal on the 30th of September in 2023. And I was very honored to be with the Augustinians on that day and to celebrate with them and him for that very important moment. I was, my ears perked up in that moment when already people I was meeting there were talking about him as being papal material. That was almost 2 years ago. And so it's been with great interest we've been watching what other people are saying about him. But he is an extraordinary leader. He's got a very keen intellect. He pursued a doctorate in canon law, which is not for the faint of heart. He has a heart of as large as the whole world. He has a heart that immediately gravitates to the people who are the most overlooked, forgotten, the people who are neediest. And together, those two qualities make for an extraordinary leader. He is very discreet, and so if you tell him a secret, it's not going to go anywhere. You could tell by his demeanor in Rome how very highly regarded he was by his colleagues, and how much confidence everyone has in him.
Is he the appropriate successor to Pope Francis?
I think, of course, I'm going to tell you he's the perfect successor to Pope Francis. He knew Pope Francis very well. Pope Francis, I think, confided in him and certainly recognized his abilities and his gifts by putting him in the positions that he has in the last several years, positions of a lot of influence and someone who, and it requires someone who's very wise and discerning. And so I do think that having been formed in the kind of Vatican II theology that he was here at CTU, and then in the ministries that continued to form him with a heart for the global church, and then having been in Rome these last 2 years and part of the last two synods, I feel very confident that he will continue the theological directions and also the pastoral priorities that Pope Francis set for us, the ways of being a synodal church that we are now learning how to be and do. And I'm sure he will put his own flavor, his own mark on it, but I also feel confident that he will continue to build on what Pope Francis has begun with us.
Sister Barbara, if I may, I know the election of a new pope is exciting under any circumstance, but Chicagoans are very proud people.
Yes.
What does it mean for you, for Catholics in this city? What does it mean that Pope Leo is coming from this city?
Well, Chicago is an extraordinary city and extremely diverse, and not only in terms of ethnic and racial heritage, but religions of every stripe here in Chicago. And Chicago produces phenomenal leaders. And so I think one of the things that I would like to mention is that CTU's ethos of why we're founded here in the city, it really dates back to a piece of the founding vision that was planted for us by Cardinal Leo Sunens of Belgium, who was one of the influential cardinals at the Second Vatican Council. And he was invited to give lectures at the University of Chicago. And he put forth a vision for what seminary education in the wake of Vatican II should look like. And he proposed that rather than be in beautiful retreat, bucolic settings, that seminary formation take place right in the midst of the city, where all the needs of the people are visible and palpable, and also where we would be close to a major university for the intellectual stimulation, but also near other schools of theology and ministry, where we could have ecumenical and interreligious collaboration. And so CTU chose to locate right here in the midst of the city on the south side, and where I'm sure Pope Leo XIV, when he was Bob, imbibed the ethos of attending to those around you, especially those most in need, and in a city setting that has so many, such diversity, and learning to hear perspectives from so many different angles.
Not to make too much light of this, but do you know, was he a White Sox fan or Cubs fan?
I'm sorry, I couldn't tell you.
Cubs.
I bet Father Robin Ryan knows.
Go ahead. All right. Thank you.
Sister, what does it mean for the CTU to be able to say, yeah, the Pope went to school here?
We haven't begun to figure out how we're going to market that one. We will, and I think our development efforts are going to get easier now. I also hope that it attracts more students to CTU. If anybody hadn't heard of CTU before, hopefully they say, I didn't know about that little gem of a school on the south side of Chicago. I think if it produces popes, that could be a good place to study.
And he was known as Bob?
Yes. I presume John, are you still here? Oh, I presume he was known as Roberto in Peru?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's around here.
Do you know by any chance where he was from in Chicago? It sounds like south side is what I've heard, but you know.
We do know that. Ellen, can you help us with that?
South Holland?
What part of Chicago is he from?
He grew up in South Holland.
We think he grew up in South Holland.
You mentioned the Cardinal Leo. Do you think he may have had that in the back of his mind when he chose his papal name?
Did I say Cardinal Leo? No, I meant Pope.
The man who found this school.
Oh, Cardinal Leo Sunens.
Right. You think that the Pope Leo had that in the back of his mind?
Well, that's a good question. I rather doubt it, but but that's an interesting connection.
If you have the chance.
We'll find out.
When he calls later tonight.
What?
What's the first thing you say to him? What advice do you have? You know, things that you want him to pray for. Do you have things that you think as a pope he needs to keep inside his field of vision to help lead the world?
I'm guessing he already has that very firmly in his mind and in his heart. It was said that right after Pope Francis was elected, that one of the cardinals said to him as he was about to present himself to the world that it was reputed that one of the cardinals said to him, "Don't forget the poor." And I'm quite certain that nobody needs to remind Pope Leo XIV not to forget the poor. I'm quite certain that's in his heart. Pope Francis also was very close to people who were in war-torn areas, and I expect that Pope Leo will continue that same kind of outreach to the people who are hurting the most and know that he walks with them and prays and works toward peaceful resolutions.
We were all ecstatic, like we were just like screaming, very excited. We were across the street watching it in the living room. They were upstairs here watching it on the screen, and it was just everyone's texting each other because no way anyone believed an American would become Pope, and it just makes me at least very proud that our order produced a man prayerful, prudent, loving enough to be chosen as Pope. So it makes me feel very proud and very hopeful.
I was in downtown Chicago getting spiritual direction from the Franciscans, and I went in. We had white smoke. I came out. My colleague Deacon Raphael says, "Hey Tony, did you hear the news?" "No, what news?" I was trying to catch a 12:55 train to get back, and he goes, "Oh, Prevost was elected Pope. Oh, what's his name? Leo XIV." So I was just like, "Whoa!" And then all the way through going to Chicago, I was like, "Wow, he's from here," and it was surreal. You know, if you read scriptures enough, people are chosen. You know, so he was chosen, and we happen to be in his order, and here we are.
Yeah.
And one heart, one mind, journeying towards God. That's our motto. That's who we are. Our friends know it's true.
Yeah, Brother Tony used the word surreal. I think that was my first reaction to. I heard the words Robert Francis come out, and it kind of didn't compute for a second. And then Prevost, like, whoa, this is something really special, special for our order, special for our country, and special for our church.
Some of the reaction from around Chicago today, and there will be a lot more of it. We're going to get to some other Chicago reaction in a minute because it's just classic Chicago.
It's pretty
you knew
funny.
It was coming. The internet remains undefeated.